Cool. We are live, apparently. Looks like we're live. Yep. So, yeah. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm hijacking Nicole's YouTube. Well, through live or StreamYard. Yeah, that one. Trying to figure this out. So, anyway, I think I just got a notification on my phone that, yep, Nicole is live, but it's not Nicole. So, anyway, today we are going to be talking about being home alone on the homestead. And so I'm going to give it a minute just to see if anybody else comes in. And I'm also still trying to figure out the whole StreamYard thing. So, yeah, looks like everything is good on this. It says we're live, and I'm assuming that means it's actually recording. So, yeah, I'll do a normal, 5-second pause or whatever so she can strip the audio out of this when she wants to. And this chair is totally not tall enough for this desk. We'll try that. That's a little bit better. You can tell I don't really do this from this specific location. But anyway. All right. Here we go. Hi, and welcome to the Living Free in Tennessee podcast, normally run by Nicole, who is not here right now, which is why her show is getting hijacked by me. Yes. This is always fun. So anyway, today we are going to be talking about rednecks being home alone on the homestead. And this is going to kind of apply somewhat to people who are just running a homestead by themselves, but I'm coming at this more from an aspect of you normally have more than one person on the homestead, and somebody's going to be out of town on vacation, whatever the case might be, so you're getting left by yourself, or if you're going to farm sit for somebody else. This will very much apply because it does change things quite dramatically. But before we get into that, a couple of notes here. I actually wrote notes. So Self-Reliance Festival is coming up. She did not give me the dates. Let me see if I have the dates. But let's see, ticket price was $75 for the early bird and $450 for the VIP. I have no idea what's listed for the VIP this time around, but dates are, where is it? 25th and 26th of March. Yes, I have notes on my phone with dates specifically for any event, anytime Nicole's going to be out of town, anytime I'm going to be out of town. Very important to have, because I won't remember. So anyway, Self-Reliance Festival is coming up. This one should be pretty good. I don't know who all is speaking, but I know that we should have some pretty decent names in there, plus a lot of the normal guys. And it's always just a really good time. You can actually see a lot of the progress that John Willis is making on his property with putting in swales and this, that, and the other. So that's always a good time. Now, normal segments for the intro for the show, we have Tales from the Prepper Pantry. Right now, that pretty much consists of meat, because I'm eating a lot of meat. Last night, I don't know how much that meatloaf weighed, but it was like a good 2 or 3 pounds. And yes, I ate all of it by myself because I like meatloaf. The other thing that I have been tapping into with Nicole being gone from the Prepper Pantry is the basket of garlic sitting in her mudroom. And last night when I went to make the meatloaf, I grabbed a handful and minced it up dropped it across the top of the meatloaf, and just kind of pressed it in. I'm sure there was already garlic in there, but why not? It's garlic, right? I mean, if you don't like garlic, there's something wrong with you. You might want to go, see a psychiatrist or something. But anyway, shopping report. I know that's a normal segment right now, and I have no idea. I have access to her YouTube, but not her email. So anyway, Operation Independence. So today you're going to get my take on a little bit different of an aspect of Operation Independence, which is normally talking about saving money. And this kind of saves money in a way, but another aspect I look at, one of the things I'm doing this week, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, is some of the fencing. I'm working on stringing electric from the goat pasture down to the pond. And yes, there is an aspect of that where we're saving money because I'm doing all the work myself, but there's also an aspect where I know exactly, like I ran wire underground across gates and across the driveway and all that kind of thing. I know exactly where it's at because I did the work. And I know that it's going to work because I did the work and I did it the right way. Like I didn't take any shortcuts. I didn't halfway do anything. Like I made sure that when I put a wrap with two wires connecting them together, I got a good solid connection. So another side of Operation Independence can be the fact that you're not going to have to pay somebody to come back out and do something a second, third, fourth, 19th time. So that's just something else to think about in regards to, Operation Independence was saving some money. And you also learn a lot along the way. So a lot of times when I'm watching YouTube, it's watching stuff about stuff that I'm going to be doing in the near future, like running fencing. So anyway, on to main topic. So being on homestead by yourself, I'm going to kind of break this up into kind of two different sections. There's some kind of cliff notes of things you should just think about, and then we're actually going to compare people to livestock. And you're also going to get my generic list of everything you need to know about taking care of livestock. So with this list, you should be able to go out, think about it a little bit, and then be able to go get any kind of livestock you want to. As long as you go by this list, you should have all of your boxes checked. But we'll get to that part in a minute. So coming at this from the aspect that I'm at right now, with normally there's me and Nicole. And right now Nicole isn't here. So one of the very first things is, we call it in the military cross training. And whenever I talk about cross training, absolutely no secrets. Never, ever, ever do you ever not tell somebody what you do in regards to maintaining something. Being a mechanic, like if there was something that somebody did, like once a week, they would go open and close this valve to make sure that, nothing was building up in the valve. You don't keep that to yourself. You make sure that the rest of the crew knows about that. And the same thing applies to the homestead. If, every week there is a thing that you do that's something you want to make sure everybody else is at least aware of. Maybe you don't specifically take them out there and be like, okay, so for this, you're going to take, half a tablespoon of vinegar and dump it in this drain like that, but at least make them aware of the fact that that's something that you do, because it could be something that you can do before you leave, or, if you're the person staying, it's something that they can do before they leave. But if it's something that can't, then you have to do it, and you should be aware of the fact that that's something that they do. And another thing on that regards is stuff that happens automatically. So with your water system, like we have a water softener here, and at a time that I can't remember, it needs to get reset. But once a week, it's usually on like Saturday or Sunday at 6 o'clock, it goes through a flush cycle. So if you don't need to flush the toilet between the hours of 5 and 6 p.m. on Saturday, everybody should be aware of that fact. And that definitely falls under cross training. Another thing, kind of along the same vein, is knowing where everything is at. Now, obviously, like animal feed, it should be fairly obvious, but for the most part around here, I do everything with all the fencing. Nicole does, if there's something first aid related with an animal, that's Nicole's not primary thing, but like she's gonna run point on that. So the animal first aid kit is in her house. I don't have one in my house. And so I make sure that I know where that is and anything else like that. Same thing, we have a water softener. Both of us know where the salt for the water softener is. So knowing there's an aspect of knowing wherever what needs to get done and knowing where everything is. Because another thing is, what did I put in my notes? If this, then that. That's the stuff that's going to come back to bite you, because Murphy is not a very polite person. So if you're not prepared for something, that's what he's going to throw at you. So, if you don't know where the animal first aid kit is, you're probably going to need it. So, also kind of continuing down that road is pre-staging everything. And, we do this with other aspects of our life. Most people, if you're going on a road trip, the day before, you're going to go top the car up with gas. Like, nobody wants to leave the house for a 12-hour road trip with a quarter tank of gas and a half cup of coffee. You top the car off the day before, and you top the coffee cup up right before you walk out the door. I mean, I topped the coffee up right before I started this live stream. So, just being aware of that type of stuff as well is, to me, it's important, because that's the stuff that's usually going to go wrong. And the last thing I have on this list is false flag plans. Yes, false flags. I always have a plan for what I'm going to do when Nicole is gone. I usually have no intention of actually doing that, because I know something is going to go wrong. So I make sure that I have a plan for the thing that I want to do while she's gone. And I'm watching over, out of the corner of my eye, waiting for something to go catastrophically wrong so that I can respond to it. This time around was the Great Sheep Rebellion. Yes, my false flag plan was I was going to be replumbing part of her water system in the prepper pantry, which is not a priority. It's just kind of a nice to get done kind of a thing. So if I have time, I will totally work on that plan. But that was just kind of my diversionary plan, because I knew something was going to go wrong. Always does. It's always something. It's usually one big thing always goes wrong. Fortunately, this time it wasn't something that required a temporary fix. It's actually something that requires a permanent fix. So this whole thing started with a paddock dispute. Okay, I've got the sheep on one side of the pond. Apparently, the sheep don't want to be on that side of the pond. They want to be on the other side of the pond. Well, they're going to be where I tell them to be. So I got the pond divided in half, and I was trying to move one of the sheep over to rejoin those sheep, and the other two decided they were just going to go where they wanted to. So I didn't have the fence hot because we don't have electric run all the way across the property yet. And I'm also down my backup fence charger that I would have used in this particular situation because I don't know what happened to it. I needed to warranty the thing and I haven't gotten around to it. So I'm down a fence charger. I don't have a backup. So my immediate solution was to take an extra reel of electric wire and run it across the yard and across the driveway and just hook it up so that I can put power to the wire where they're at. But that's not really an ideal situation. It wasn't, it kind of mostly worked. But I have the stuff because I'm getting ready to run with the perimeter fence a top hot wire of electric all the way around the property so that wherever the sheep are on the property, I've got one fence charger, the one for the goat pasture that's pumping electricity out to the whole property. So I went on and spent basically 2 days running all of that wire to get electricity all the way to the pond from the goat pasture. So I finished that this morning. I almost finished it last night, but I had to dig like, I don't know, 10 feet of really shallow trench to run an underground wire. And it was getting dark and I just didn't feel like it. So I got up this morning and finished that up. So, you know, all of that to say, have your false flag plan and just be prepared to deal with whatever happens to come up. Okay. So that concludes half of this. So now we're going to move on to my list of things you need to know for keeping livestock and or caring for rednecks when they're by themselves. So it's intended to be a generic list. And it's not really, I wouldn't call this a one size fits all. It's more just generic. And the reason I do this as a generic list is because it makes you think about things. So the first thing on the list is shelter and sanitation. Animals need shelter, people need shelter, and they need sanitation. And I leave it at that because it forces people to think about, okay, well, if I'm applying this to a chicken, what form of shelter does a chicken need? And what do I need to do about their sanitation? If it's a pig, it's obviously different, but it kind of puts the idea in your head of what you need to think about, and then you can figure it out on your own, what you actually need. So obviously right now for this whole list, we pretty much have everything set up for all of our livestock. But if you're going on to somebody else's homestead, having this list in your head kind of helps you mentally prepare to know where everything is that you need to know about for their property. And if you're not the person that does it on your property, same vein. So one of the unique parts for me for shelter and sanitation right now is I'm running 2 different households because obviously me and Nicole both live in the holler. I've got my place, she has hers, but right now it's winter time, so I'm maintaining 2 fires, because we both eat with wood. I'm primarily cooking at her house because that's where the dogs all are, so I can cook my dinner and feed the dogs dinner and everything in one place, but I'm still sleeping and going to the bathroom in my place. So, obviously if you are married and your husband's going to be gone or whatever. That's not as much of an issue for you, but it's something to think about as far as, does anything change with that, more for the sanitation side of things. And with like our animals, as far as shelter and sanitation, the only thing that's really going to change is sanitation for the sheep, because I prefer not to leave them anywhere for more than 5 or 6 days. So I personally, this goes back to the whole pre-staging thing. I try to set it up that, if I'm going to be gone or Nicole's going to be gone and I'm going to be here by myself, the day before one of us leaves, the sheep move. Even if they don't need to, if they've been in one spot for 2 days, but somebody's going to leave, I try to just go on and get them moved, or at least have their next paddock set up so that it takes 5 minutes to get them moved. So that's something else to think about. Containment and exclusion is the next thing on my list for livestock, which, like I said, for our livestock, this is already set up. And so if you're going on somebody else's property, knowing where the chickens are and aren't supposed to be is something that's usually pretty beneficial to know. That way they don't come back and, their whole flower bed's torn up from a chicken. That kind of thing. But that's kind of fairly simple. Then we got security. So obviously you should pretty much already have whatever you feel like you need for security in place. But, when I was thinking about this, one thing that I have done here is thinking outside of just like, I'm here, I've got my gun and I'm good. Like, I actually had a conversation with one of the local sheriff's deputies and actually asked the question, given where we are, what's your response time if somebody's trying to break the door down with a chainsaw? Like, not just like, oh, I thought I saw a person, but like somebody is actively trying to get in the house to do harm. What would your response time be? Because I'm assuming it's going to be like, half an hour because of where we live. You actually said, no, it'll be like 5 to 15 minutes maybe, because the next town that their actual department is at has its own police department, so they usually don't hang out in town. They're usually out this direction. And they also do have a signed agreement with the other surrounding law enforcement agencies that if it's something extremely serious, the Putnam County Sheriff's Department or the state troopers will respond if necessary. So, there's some outside the box thinking as far as security, and then with yourself, and then with animals, this is where communication with whoever else that you're working with is important, because like for here, the two primary things that we have to be concerned with is, well, actually three, is birds of prey, which I don't consider much of a threat because I have a 45-pound blue heeler that would literally eat that bird if it ever came down here. And I think it was yesterday, she spent about half the day running around barking at bad birds because for whatever reason they decided they wanted to circle this particular part of the holler. So it was entertaining watching her run back and forth, literally chasing them through the woods. But, we've got birds of prey, your possums and raccoons that will go after the poultry. They ain't really going to go after the sheep, but, they'll go after the poultry. And I know that they're probably going to come out between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. ish. I've got them on camera. That's usually, if Sonny's going to come back with a possum, it's probably going to be about 10, 11 o'clock at night. Like, that's usually when that happens. So making sure that everybody else is aware of that fact. And then the third thing that we have around here is coyotes. And that's another thing with it is if you hear 2 gunshots at night, particularly like, sometime after sunset to like, 10 p.m., that's me telling the coyotes that they need to go relocate somewhere else. I mean, around here, you're probably never going to get a shot off at a coyote because the woods, and you'll never actually be able to see them. They'll know that you're there and take off before you actually get close enough to be able to actually shoot at them. So the best thing that I can do is just walk outside, pop 2 rounds into the ground, and they don't like that and decide to go somewhere not here. But that is definitely something that we have communicated with all of the neighbors. If you hear 2 gunshots around this point in time at night, it's because of the coyotes. And that's also made obvious because before that, you'll hear coyotes yipping and yelling, and then after that, you don't hear nothing. So the next thing I've got on the list is food and then water. Now, on the animal side of that, usually the water is it's pretty much just there for all the animals. You might have to top something up for somebody, but right now with it dipping below freezing sometimes, that can be a little bit more of an issue. So for the water side of things, making sure that I know, or I make sure that everybody else knows, for the rabbit coop that we have, there is a stock tank heater and a pump that recirculates the water through their system, so that if I'm not here, everybody else knows, hey, not only do you need to top up the water for the rabbits, you also need to make sure that everything's plugged in if it's going down below freezing, which also kind of falls into the if this then that category. Like, weather is definitely a big one in that. During the summertime, there's a lot of stuff that's not that big of a deal. But in the wintertime, making sure everybody has straw, water's not frozen, all that kind of thing is a lot bigger deal. So on the food side, I have everything set up here so that there is a trash can full of the animals' feed right next to where the animals are. So there's a trash can next to the door for the duck coop that has all the duck feed in it. There's a trash can full of rabbit food right next to the rabbits. And so that makes food for them really simple. Another aspect of that is your pre-staging. So I make sure that all of that is topped up before anybody's leaving. Right now we've got the sheep are primarily on hay. The sheep are also in 2 different locations, but the hay is all stored in the barn up the road. So we also have a pallet over here that I can go over, when Nicole's still here and I'm not stressed out of my mind. I can go over and grab a couple of bales of hay, bring it back over here and throw it on the pallet under the carport where it's going to stay dry, so that if I need to top hay up for somebody, I don't have to go all the way to the barn in the cold, in the rain to get hay. It's literally pre-staged right there. So now, food for people. This is a big one for me, especially with cognizant problems and so forth and so on. And when I get busy, I get hyper focused. So stopping to eat can be a big deal for me. And so one of the things that we always try to do is, if I'm going to be here, especially for an extended period of time by myself, is to have stuff that's kind of pre-prepped and ready to go. So there was the meatloaf that I ate last night, which was awesome because literally I worked literally until sunset, walked in, turned the oven on, preheated the oven, pulled the foil off the top of the meatloaf, smashed some more garlic in there, and slid it into the oven. And that was done. That's nice and easy. And then also when I'm cooking, like tonight, I don't know what you call this that I'm making. It's basically I'm gonna take my enameled Dutch oven. I'm gonna throw like a metric ton of sausage in there and pretty much get that mostly pre-cooked. And then I'm gonna be throwing in onion, jalapeno, an entire head of cabbage, probably some carrot, and if those Brussels sprouts are still good, I'll probably chop those up and throw them in there too. And basically cook an entire 7-quart Dutch oven of that. And this is one of those things, there's gonna be leftovers from that. Like I can eat a lot, but I'm not gonna eat all of that. I mean, 7 quarts, I mean, literally, let's do a comparison here because my enamel Dutch oven is right here. Like literally, that will not fit in here. It's just not possible. So, you know, this is gonna be a lot of food. So I'm gonna have leftovers. I don't understand people that don't like leftovers. Like people that are just vehemently opposed to something that was cooked yesterday. Like I don't get it. You need to start making things like I've never met anybody for the most part that doesn't like cold pizza. Like there's some things that curry is so much better the second day because everything has a chance to soak in. Like this is one of those things that once everything is cooked and you throw that in the fridge and you let it sit and the rest of that grease from the sausage has a chance to soak in, it's going to be so much better the second day. And I will actually eat that cold. I do it all the time when I make this. Should come up with a name for that. Maybe make it into Nicole's cookbook. But anyway, pre-planning to have stuff that's already kind of ready to go and then having stuff in the freezer. So the sausage that I'm going to be using for what I'm making tonight was in the freezer in the top right hand corner. I know exactly where it is. I pulled it out last night to start defrosting. And that's what I'm going to use. So once again, kind of pre-staging all of my food so that it's nice and easy. Lunch today, which I haven't eaten yet, I should probably think about doing that, seeing how it's 1 o'clock, is going to be summer sausage with a guacamole sauce that I'm just going to basically smear on top because that just sounds like it would be good. So there's some simpler things that you can do too, but trying to think all of this out ahead of time is definitely beneficial for having to manage stuff by yourself, especially when you're having problems like, a sheep rebellion. So the last thing that I have on this list for the livestock is maintenance and first aid. And like I said earlier with, the knowing when certain things need to get done, like, the water softener is going to flush at a certain time, or you need to add salt to the water softener, or whatever the case might be. Same thing with animals, knowing, like, I'm trying to think of a specific example of something that would be more of a maintenance issue, and I can't think of anything, but, there are certain things with animals that would be considered a maintenance thing. Trimming hooves for sheep, which I'm not going to do by myself. I'll wait. That actually does need to get done, but I'm waiting for Nicole to get back for that, so that there's 2 of us for that. Or actually, here's a really good example. One of the sheep just gave birth, and she is still getting birthing fluid excrement stuff that's coming out and getting stuck on her tail. And so right now that is a maintenance thing for us. And we made sure that before Nicole left, that we got her tail cleaned really well. And then hopefully we can eke this out long enough that Nicole will be back before it needs to be done again. If not, I'm going to have to call one of the neighbors over and be like, yep, you're going to learn how to do this. So, that's an example of maintenance. And then, same thing, first aid. I noticed last night I had one of the ducks was not acting quite right. And like she didn't want to get out of the pond when it was time to go to bed. And so I went down there, and just based on the way her feathers looked, it looked like she had been in the pond all day. I'm like, all right, there's something up. You got something stuck in your foot, not really sure. Got her to go to bed. So this morning when I went out there, of course, everybody else beelines for the pond. She was limping to the door. I'm like, yeah, you got something stuck in your foot or something. So it was really easy to get a hold of her. I look, and it's like, okay, there ain't nothing wrong with your foot. So it appears that she is possibly sick. So I'm kind of letting her be right now, letting her do her thing. But after I get off of here, I'm going to go on and set up a quarantine area for her, which once again, that goes back to knowing where everything is. I know where the cage I'm going to use is located. I know where all the first aid stuff is. I'm going to give her a bath with Epsom salt. And I know where all of that stuff is. So just being aware of all that kind of thing, when I have to deal with a situation like this, it's really easy. And even though I have no idea what's actually wrong with her, I know enough to know mostly what to do for the time being. And then if I need to go beyond initial actions, is what we would call it in the military, then I've got time to, phone a friend or whatever. So anyway, that's pretty much it. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else pertinent that I should mention. I don't know. But anyway, comments. I have not looked at comments the entire time that I've been doing this. Tips on how to find a tactical redneck for your homestead. I don't know, make friends with people. Like literally. The way that I ended up here was I met Nicole online through Zello, and we talked, and we kind of knew each other, whatever. And then she put out an episode on squash, and I listened to that. And the next time we were both on Zello at the same time, we got into like an hour and a half long conversation about food. Like literally, I don't know why the number an hour and a half sticks out in my head, but it was literally, I think it was about an hour and a half. And after that, we just, we became friends online. And then we went to an event. We both went to the same event, and that's where we met in person. And when you meet somebody in person, it really does kind of change the dynamic of your relationship. And we became even better friends after that. And then when I got out of the military, she gave me a place to go, come here, and I've been here since. So, say that, I brought up at the beginning, Self-Reliance Festival is coming up. If you haven't been, you should go. If you have been, you should go. because there are a lot of relationships that have been developed in places like that. So, oh, interesting. I was wondering why that comment disappeared, and apparently my mouse was hovering over it, and there's a little tab that says show. Should I click it? Let's click it. Oh, that's how you do that. Does it just go away on its own? Yes, we're learning StreamYard together. But anyway, what else do we have? Sometimes the Drake goes to be a little too rough on a female. Yes. Um, I I have seen Drakes actually draw blood on the females. But I don't think that that's necessarily what happened with this particular case. Um, you are not we. Not really sure what that means. For checklist on homestead. For checklist on a homestead, you can video. Oh yeah. Um. Okay, that's what the QR comment was about. But yeah, doing a video checklist on certain things that you do is actually a really good idea. I have done that before with certain things because sometimes it's just I can write out an entire thing about something and some people will be able to go with that. Some people don't do very well off of text. I'm more of a visual person, but a lot of times like if there's something that I do, I can take a video of it and it'll take me like 30 seconds to be like, walk over here, do this, and then do that, and then you're good. Like literally, that's it. But it'd take me like an hour to sit down and try to write out an explanation for that. So the video clip thing is actually a really good idea. Anything else I should respond to? Um, no, no, that looks like about it. So, all right. Well, anyway, I've been running my mouth for almost 45 minutes. That's actually kind of impressive. I did not expect this to go that long. But anyway, I have other things that need to get done. Getting ready to actually move the girls again now that I've got them under control. So I'm going to get off of here and go handle a couple of other things. And till the next time y'all hear from Nicole, bye. I don't know when you'll hear from me again. I'll hijack it again at some point. Anyway, make it a great week, guys.